xenobiologist Vex of the Ulmar species had spent 16 cycles studying the third planet of the unremarkable yellow star system. What had started as routine observation had evolved into fascination, then concern, and now a peculiar mixture of dread and reverence. The Galactic Federation Science Council's summons had been unexpected. Vex's slender appendages trembled as they entered the grand chamber, compound eyes blinking nervously. "Specialist Vex," the council elder's voice resonated. "Your reports on the Earth species have been troubling. The council requires clarification." Vex's exoskeleton clicked softly as they approached the center platform. "Esteemed council, my observations are accurate. The beings of Earth, humans, are unlike any species we've encountered. Explain these concerning attributes mentioned in your latest report," demanded a council member. "Humans evolved on a death world," Vex began. "Their planet has extreme temperature variations, toxic atmospheric components, lethal radiation exposure from their star, and constant tectonic instability. Yet they not only survived, but thrived." The chamber filled with the low hum of concerned murmurs. "They appear physically unimpressive," Vex continued, "lacking natural defenses like our exoskeletons or the Proxians' regenerative abilities. Yet, they exhibit inexplicable durability. They sustain injuries that would terminate most species and simply continue functioning." The chief science officer leaned forward. "Are they a hive mind?" "No," Vex replied. "Paradoxically, they're fiercely individual, yet cooperate in complex social structures. They're both intensely tribal and capable of transcendent empathy toward strangers. It defies evolutionary logic." "Most concerning," Vex continued, activating the holographic display, "is their technological trajectory." The display showed a timeline, from primitive tools to space exploration in less than 10,000 years, an unprecedented pace. While technologically inferior to the Federation, their rate of advancement is exponential. They've split atoms, manipulated their genetic code, and begun planetary exploration with machinery that, while primitive, shows remarkable ingenuity. "Are they hostile?" asked the War Minister, speaking for the first time. "They're complicated," Vex replied carefully. "Their history contains violence that would horrify even the most aggressive Federation species. Yet they also demonstrate capacity for kindness that borders on self-destruction. They protect weaker members with no evolutionary advantage. They've created art forms whose only purpose is to evoke emotion." The council elder's voice cut through the chamber. "The Federation protocol is clear. Species with rapid technological development and violent tendencies must be monitored from a distance until they either self-destruct or achieve social equilibrium." Vex's appendages quivered. "If I may, Elder, humans don't follow predictable patterns. Our standard models may not apply." The council fell silent, and Vex felt the weight of thousands of years of galactic protocol pressing down. "The council has decided," the Elder finally announced. "Standard protocols are insufficient. Specialist Vex, you are ordered to make first contact." Vex's respiratory system nearly failed. "Direct contact? But our physiological differences—" "You've studied them longer than any other observer. You will land, establish communication, and report directly on their potential threat level." As the chamber emptied, the chief science officer approached. "The council fears what we don't understand, Vex. What they really want to know is, are humans predators we should fear, or simply an evolutionary anomaly?" Vex stared at the holographic image of the blue planet. "Neither," they replied softly. "I believe they may be something the galaxy has never seen before." Vex's observation pod touched down in a remote forest clearing, adaptive camouflage engaging as it settled among Earth vegetation. After 16 cycles of distant study, being on the planet's surface felt surreal. The atmospheric composition, readings matched predictions, a nitrogen-oxygen mixture that was barely tolerable to Vex's respiratory system. The gravity was punishing, nearly 1.3 times what their exoskeleton was designed for. "How do they function in these conditions?" Vex muttered, activating their external mobility suit. The mission parameters were clear. Observe humans up close, document behaviors, assess threat level, and, if absolutely necessary, make controlled contact with a small sample group. The Federation wanted answers, not diplomatic incidents. Vex's first close observation came sooner than expected. Just 2 planetary rotations after landing, their sensors detected approaching humans. 3 of them, moving purposefully through the forest. Vex activated enhanced audio receptors. "Should be just past this ridge," one human said. "Weather stations stopped transmitting yesterday," Vex observed with fascination. These humans were traversing difficult terrain carrying equipment that appeared to weigh nearly 1/3 of their body mass. The temperature was 263 units on the standard scale, far below optimal for most carbon-based life. "Blizzard's coming in faster than predicted," another human said. "We've got 3 hours tops before visibility drops to 0. The third human laughed, an unusual vocalization that Vex had studied but never heard directly. "Wouldn't be the first time we've navigated by touch. Remember that Mount Lorix expedition? Nearly lost my fingers to frostbite that time." Vex's analytical mind struggled to process this casual reference to severe tissue damage. In any rational species, the loss of manipulative appendages would be catastrophic, not an anecdote shared with amusement. The humans reached the malfunctioning weather station and immediately began repairs, their bare manipulators exposed to temperatures that should cause immediate pain. Occasionally, one would blow warm exhalation onto their digits, a curiously primitive method of temperature regulation, then continue working. When precipitation began, frozen water crystals falling from the atmosphere, Vex expected the humans to seek shelter. Instead, they worked faster. "Dave, hand me the circuit tester," one called, and another passed a tool without hesitation, a perfect example of their cooperative efficiency. 4 hours later, an hour past what they had identified as their safety threshold. The humans completed repairs. By then, they were partially covered in frozen precipitation, their outer coverings crusted with ice, visibility reduced to mere meters. "Base camp, this is Team 3. Station RX-7 is back online. Beginning. Return trek." The response came through their communication devices. "Team 3, conditions are now Category 4. Advise immediate shelter in place." The humans exchanged glances, and Vex expected them to follow this sensible advice. Instead, the lead human replied, "Negative, base. We've got emergency supplies but not enough for an extended stay. We're coming back." What followed astonished Vex. The humans moved through near-zero visibility conditions, using primitive directional tools and their own memorization of the terrain. When one fell into a snow-covered depression, the others extracted them without hesitation, even as doing so exposed them to greater risk. By all logical analysis, these humans should have perished. The combination of temperature, exposure time, and physical exertion exceeded survival parameters for Class 3 biological entities. Yet they not only survived but completed their objective. As Vex watched them disappear into the white haze, a disturbing thought formed. The Federation's classification system might be fundamentally inadequate for humans. They weren't simply resilient. They routinely operated beyond what should be their biological limits, treating survival as an expectation rather than an achievement. In their report that night, Vex wrote, "Humans do not respect physical limitations that govern other species. They do not merely adapt to hostile environments. They defy them through sheer determination. This quality alone makes them unique among known sentient beings." After 3 weeks of close observation, Vex had documented dozens of examples of human physical resilience. Yet something more profound was emerging from the data, something that didn't translate well into the Federation's analytical frameworks. Vex had expanded their observation range, carefully moving their cloaked pod to the outskirts of a human settlement. The dwelling structures were primitive by galactic standards, yet arranged with careful consideration for both function and aesthetic appeal. A curious combination of pragmatism and what humans called beauty, a concept that had no direct translation in Ulmar language. On this particular day, Vex observed a small human, a juvenile, fall from a tree-climbing apparatus in what humans designated a park. The youngling's leg bent at an unnatural angle, clearly damaged. Vex's sensors detected the release of stress hormones as the small human vocalized its distress. What happened next defied Vex's prediction algorithms. An unrelated adult human, with no apparent genetic connection to the injured juvenile, immediately abandoned their activities and rushed to assist. Soon, multiple unrelated humans converged, offering comfort and medical assistance. "Fascinating," Vex muttered, recording the interaction. Resource expenditure on non-kin with no clear evolutionary advantage. Even more puzzling was the emotional display of an older human, presumably the juvenile's genetic contributor, who arrived moments later. This human exhibited extreme physiological stress responses despite suffering no physical injury themselves. Their vital signs indicated elevated heart rate, respiratory distress, and hormone cascades, typically associated with threat response, yet the threat was to another being, not themselves. As the juvenile was transported for medical attention, Vex followed at a safe distance, observing as humans in specialized attire treated the injury. They used chemical compounds to eliminate pain perception, an expected medical procedure, but then engaged in behavior that had no apparent medical function. Physical contact behaviors called hugging, verbal reassurances, and the offering of colorful objects that served no nutritional or protective purpose. They expend significant energy on emotional regulation, Vex noted in their report. Not just their own emotions, but those of others, even strangers. Over the next few days, Vex witnessed more examples of this behavior. Humans gathered in groups for no apparent survival purpose, simply to exchange vocalizations and engage in synchronized activities they called games or celebrations. They produced nutrient substances far more complex than required for efficient, caloric intake, apparently for sensory pleasure. They engaged in elaborate grooming rituals and adorned themselves with non-functional accessories. Most perplexing of all, they created and consumed fictional narratives, stories of events that never occurred, featuring beings that didn't exist. They willingly exposed themselves to narratives designed to trigger emotional responses like sadness or fear, emotions that most species would logically avoid. Their emotional complexity exceeds any known species, Vex reported. They appear to derive strength from emotional states that should, by all evolutionary logic, be disadvantageous. They willingly endure discomfort for abstract concepts like loyalty and friendship. They sacrifice resources for strangers based on emotional impulses they call compassion and empathy. Vex observed a small group of humans working collectively to construct a dwelling for another human who had lost theirs in what they called a fire. None appeared to receive material compensation. "Why?" one of the humans was asked by another. "Because it's the right thing to do," came the reply. A concept that had no functional translation in the Federation's lexicon. In their private log that night, Vex wrote something they dared not include in an official report. "I am beginning to wonder if emotions, which the Federation has long considered a primitive evolutionary vestige to be minimized through advancement, might instead be an untapped power source that humans have uniquely learned to harness." The incident that forced direct contact came unexpectedly. Vex had relocated their observation pod to a new position near a human research facility labeled Dawson Meteorological Institute. The facility's remote location and small staff made it ideal for continuing observations while minimizing exposure risk. Vex had not accounted for human curiosity. "There's something out there," one of the researchers said one morning studying instrument readings. "Every night for the past week, same electromagnetic signature, doesn't match any known equipment. Probably malfunctioning sensors," another replied. "Nothing survives in that sector anyway. It's all rock and ice. I'm going to check it out. Take the thermal imager. Might be wildlife." Vex realized their error too late. The pod's adaptive camouflage was designed to defeat visual identification, not the specialized detection equipment the human was carrying. 3 hours later, a human stood less than 10 meters from the observation pod, staring directly at it through a handheld device. "What the hell?" the human whispered, then activated their communication device. "Base, this is Miller. You're not going to believe this, but there's something here. Invisible to the naked eye, but the thermal imager is picking up a distinct heat signature with artificial geometry. Definitely not natural. Federation protocol was clear regarding discovery. Immediate retreat and contact severance." Yet Vex hesitated. 16 cycles of research would be lost, and more importantly, an unprecedented opportunity presented itself. direct observation of human first contact behavior. Making a decision that would later be scrutinized by the Council, Vex deactivated the camouflage systems. The human, Miller, stumbled backward as the pod shimmered into visibility. To Vex's surprise, after the initial shock response, the human's vital signs stabilized remarkably quickly. Instead of fleeing, Miller approached cautiously. "Hello?" the human called out. "I'm Dr. Thomas Miller of Earth. I mean no harm." The universal translator processed the human's speech patterns. Vex activated external communication systems. "This is xenobiologist Vex of the Galactic Federation. I also intend no harm." The human's pupils dilated, but again, their stress response diminished rather than escalated. "You speak English?" "I utilize a translation matrix. Your language patterns were analyzed during our observation period." "Observation period?" Miller's voice raised slightly. "How long have you been watching us?" "By your chronology, approximately 16 years. The human processed this information with remarkable adaptability. Instead of anger, their primary emotional response appeared to be curiosity. "Are you alone? Why observe us? Are there others like you?" Vex had expected fear, possibly aggression, the typical response patterns of species discovering they are not alone in the universe. Instead, this human exhibited immediate cognitive adjustment and information-seeking behavior. Over the next 4 hours, more humans arrived. Their response pattern was consistent: initial shock, rapid adaptation, then insatiable curiosity. They established a perimeter around Vex's pod, not for containment but for protection. They brought recording devices, set up communication equipment, and began systematic documentation of the encounter. Most surprising was their communication methodology. Rather than waiting for translation, they immediately began attempting to establish direct linguistic connections, offering vocabulary and identifying objects with labels. "Water," one would say, holding up a container of clear liquid. "Sky," another pointed upward. They were building a lexicon, assuming Vex's translator might be limited. They were right. The matrix had gaps, but their intuitive leap to address this problem was remarkable. By nightfall, a rudimentary communication protocol had been established, and the humans had organized into research teams focusing on different aspects of the contact: biological, linguistic, technological, and cultural. In their report that night, Vex wrote, "Humans demonstrate unprecedented cognitive flexibility in first contact scenarios. Rather than responding with the threat assessment behaviors typical of most species, they immediately implement information acquisition protocols. They appear to intuitively understand that communication is multi-layered and requires mutual adaptation. Most significantly, their curiosity appears to override their fear response, a characteristic previously considered impossible in successful evolutionary lineages." 3 days after first contact, the communication link with the Federation suddenly activated. Vex was surprised. Standard protocol dictated minimal contact during field missions. "Priority override," came the Council Elder's voice. "Return to your vessel immediately. Terminate all contact with the humans." Vex hesitated. "May I inquire?" "As to the reason, Elder? Our long-range monitoring has detected a Level 1 extinction event approaching the Earth system. An asteroid, composition primarily iron-nickel, diameter approximately 8.3 kilometers, impact projected in 47 days. The planet will experience a mass extinction event." Vex's respiratory system faltered momentarily. "Have the humans been informed?" "Their primitive detection systems will identify it within approximately 5 days. We have convened an emergency session regarding interference protocols." "And the decision?" A pause. "Non-interference has been confirmed. The humans have not achieved the technological threshold for intervention under Statute 7.3. But Elder, they will be extinguished. Natural selection operates on a galactic scale," xenobiologist Vex. "Many promising species do not survive to full development. You are ordered to withdraw and observe the extinction event from a safe distance. Your research on human behavior during terminal crisis will be valuable to the anthropological archives." The communication ended before Vex could respond. For 3.7 hours, Vex contemplated their options. Federation law was absolute. Interference in planetary extinction events was forbidden for pre-FTL civilizations. Yet in those 3 days of direct contact, Vex had learned more about humans than in 16 cycles of observation. Decision made, Vex emerged from their pod and approached the human research team. "I must share critical information," Vex announced. "Your planet faces imminent danger." The humans' response was not what Vex predicted. After the initial shock, they immediately organized into crisis teams. Within hours, the information had been verified by their own scientists, and a global alert system activated. "Why are you telling us this?" asked Dr. Miller. "Doesn't your Federation have rules against interfering?" "Yes," Vex admitted. "I am violating our highest directive." "Why risk it?" Vex considered the question. "Because I have observed that humans routinely attempt the impossible. I wish to document your response to extinction-level threat." What followed was unprecedented in Vex's experience. Within days, humans worldwide unified their scientific communities. Political differences that had seemed insurmountable were temporarily set aside. Resources were reallocated on a global scale. "We're calling it Project Bulwark," Dr. Miller explained to Vex. "A multi-phase approach, simultaneous development of deflection technology, bunker systems, and seed preservation vaults." "Your technology is insufficient," Vex stated factually. "You cannot generate the necessary force to alter the asteroid's trajectory." "Then, we'll have to invent something that can," replied Miller without hesitation. Vex observed as humans worked in continuous shifts. They combined technologies in ways Federation scientists would consider illogical or excessively risky. They bypassed safety protocols, accelerated testing schedules, and operated equipment beyond design tolerances. Most remarkably, they refused to accept defeat. When simulations showed a particular approach wouldn't work, instead of abandoning it as logical beings would, they simply recalibrated and tried again with modifications. "Humans appear to gain cognitive efficiency under existential threat," Vex noted in their illegal report. "Their problem-solving methodology becomes more innovative rather than more conservative when survival is at stake, the opposite of most sentient response patterns." 28 days before projected impact, the humans had constructed a series of massive nuclear propulsion devices, primitive but potentially effective if precisely deployed. The entire space programs of 7 nations had been redirected to deliver these devices to the asteroid. "The probability of success is approximately 12.7%, Vex informed Dr. Miller. Miller smiled. A facial expression Vex had learned indicated either amusement or determination. "Then we'll just have to beat the odds, won't we? It wouldn't be the first time." The Federation Council was in continuous emergency session. Vex's unauthorized information sharing with the humans represented the most significant protocol breach in 3,000 cycles. "Specialist Vex must be extracted immediately," the War Minister insisted. "The contamination must be contained." "The humans were going to detect the asteroid within days anyway," countered the Science Minister. "The contamination is minimal." "That is not the point," the Elder stated. "The regulations exist to prevent precisely this scenario: emotional attachment to doomed species." On the main view screen, they watched the humans' desperate effort unfold. 3 spacecraft, hastily retrofitted with experimental propulsion systems, approached the massive asteroid. The Federation's sensors could detect the primitive nuclear devices attached to each vessel. "Their plan is flawed," the Science Minister noted. "Even if they successfully detonate all devices, the deflection will be insufficient." "They must realize this," said another council member. "Their own simulations would show the same results." Vex, attending remotely from their ship in high Earth orbit, spoke up. "Respectfully, Council, I believe they do know. They simply refuse to accept it." "Illogical," murmured several members simultaneously. On Earth, the final countdown had begun. The 3 spacecraft had successfully reached the asteroid and planted their payloads at calculated points across its surface. The detonation sequence was set to create a precisely angled thrust vector, in theory. The Federation Council and Vex watched as the first detonations occurred. The massive explosions bloomed silently in space, momentarily outshining nearby stars. For 7.4 minutes, nothing seemed to happen. Then the Science Minister leaned forward, compound eyes widening. "Impossible. The trajectory is altering." "By how much?" demanded the Elder. "Currently 0.0027 degrees. insufficient, but more than our models predicted possible with their technology. Then something unexpected happened. The third spacecraft, rather than returning as planned, propelled itself deep into a crater created by the first detonation. "What are they doing?" asked the War Minister. Vex understood immediately. "They're sacrificing themselves to deliver the final device directly into the asteroid's interior structure rather than its surface." The Council fell silent as they watched the spacecraft disappear into the asteroid's core. Minutes later, a blinding flash erupted from within the space rock itself. When the sensors recalibrated, the asteroid was still intact, but its trajectory had shifted significantly more. "Recalculating," the Science Minister announced. "New trajectory indicates Earth will be spared direct impact. The asteroid will pass within 340,000 kilometers of the planet." "How?" the Elder demanded. "Their technology shouldn't be capable of this outcome." "They modified their approach mid-mission," Vex explained. "The final spacecraft pilot altered the plan when they saw the results of the first detonations. They calculated that an internal detonation would maximize effectiveness and made the decision to sacrifice themselves. One individual chose death." "For collective survival?" asked a council member, clearly struggling with the concept. "Yes," Vex replied simply. "Humans do this regularly." The Elder's voice was subdued. "We have severely underestimated this species. The celebrations on Earth were visible even from space, lights blazing across the night side of the planet as humans realized they had survived. Communication channels overflowed with emotional expressions of joy, relief, and mourning for the sacrificed crew. They have achieved in 47 days what most species require centuries to develop," the Science Minister noted. "Their rate of innovation under pressure defies all established models. More concerning," added the War Minister, "they now possess significantly advanced propulsion technology, weapons capabilities, and proven asteroid deflection methods. Their technological advancement has accelerated by approximately 75 years. The Elder turned to Vex. "You violated our highest directive, yet your actions have revealed a species unlike any we have encountered. Return to Earth. Complete your observations. The Council must reconsider humanity's classification." As Vex's ship descended toward Earth once more, they watched humans already adapting their newly developed technologies for peaceful applications. The very propulsion systems designed for the emergency were being reconfigured for more efficient space exploration. "They don't simply survive crises," Vex noted in their report. "They emerge stronger, more unified, and more technologically advanced. Crisis doesn't break humans, it transforms them." 6 months after the asteroid crisis, Vex stood before the full Galactic Federation Council, no longer as a disgraced protocol breaker, but as the foremost expert on humanity. The Grand Chamber was filled to capacity. Representatives from all 317 member species had assembled to hear the presentation. "Esteemed Council," Vex began, "I present my complete findings on the species, designated humanity." The holographic display activated, showing Earth rotating serenely. Images of human achievements, societies, and environments flickered across the chamber. "When I began my observation 16 cycles ago, I approached humans as simply another emerging intelligence. I was mistaken. After extensive documentation and analysis, I must now formally request humanity's reclassification." The Elder leaned forward. "Explain your reasoning, xenobiologist." "Humans represent a previously unidentified category of sentient life," Vex stated. "They combine traits previously thought incompatible in evolutionary development." Vex displayed comparative charts of human capabilities against other known species. Physically, they are unremarkable. Their sensory apparatus is limited. They lack natural defenses. Their regenerative capabilities are moderate at best. Yet, Vex continued, they routinely operate beyond their biological limitations through sheer force of will. They deliberately expose themselves to environments that should be lethal, simply to prove they can survive them. They call this exploration and adventure. Images appeared of humans climbing impossibly high mountains, diving to crushing ocean depths, and enduring extreme temperatures. Their cognitive architecture is equally paradoxical. They process information through both logical and emotional pathways simultaneously, rather than evolving toward pure rationality as most advanced species do. This dual processing, which we previously considered inefficient, appears to grant them unparalleled adaptability and creative problem-solving capabilities. The science minister interrupted. Are you suggesting emotional processing is advantageous? For humans, unequivocally yes, Vex replied. Their emotions drive innovation, foster social cohesion, and provide motivation beyond simple survival. Their greatest achievements are often attributed to emotional states we've considered primitive. Curiosity, compassion, love, even righteous anger. Vex displayed footage from the asteroid crisis. Most significantly, humans exhibit two traits I believe make them unique among known species: adaptive cooperation and transcendent hope. Clarify, requested the elder. Humans compete fiercely within their social structures, yet instantly unify against external threats. During the crisis, political entities that had been in conflict for generations pooled resources and knowledge, without hesitation. As for hope, Vex continued, humans appear capable of maintaining belief in positive outcomes, despite overwhelming evidence to the contrary. They then convert this irrational belief into motivation that drives them to alter reality until it matches their hopes. It is not delusion. It is a form of collective self-fulfilling prophecy. The chamber filled with murmurs as council members discussed these findings. Based on these observations, Vex concluded, I formally propose that humans be classified as apex sentients, a designation previously theoretical. They are not the strongest, fastest, or most technologically advanced species. Rather, they represent the most adaptable, innovative, and psychologically resilient intelligence yet encountered. The elder spoke after long deliberation. Your proposal is unprecedented, but your evidence is compelling. What action do you recommend regarding humanity? Immediate formal contact, Vex replied without hesitation. Humanity will achieve independent FTL capability within 25 years at their current accelerated development rate. The Federation should establish relations before that occurs. You believe they are ready? Asked the War Minister skeptically. Readiness implies a threshold, Vex responded. Humans don't cross thresholds, they shatter them. They will never be ready by our traditional metrics, yet they are more prepared than we realize. Vex activated a final display. Thousands of human cultural artifacts depicting contact with extraterrestrial life. They have been preparing themselves through narrative simulation for generations. They have imagined this moment in countless ways. When it occurs, they will adapt as they always do, with surprising speed and creativity. 3 days later, after the longest council deliberation in recent memory, the decision was announced. Humanity would be officially contacted and invited to join the galactic community as a protected developing species. As the massive Federation diplomatic vessel descended toward Earth in full view of human detection systems, Vex stood at the observation deck. Below, humans were already gathering, their communication networks alive with activity. Are you concerned about their reaction? Asked the chief diplomatic officer. No, Vex replied. I'm concerned about ours. Humans will adapt to our existence. Easily. They've been expecting us. The question is whether the Federation can adapt to humans. What do you mean? In just my brief exposure to humans, I've questioned foundational principles of our civilization. The primacy of logic over emotion, the value of stability over innovation, the acceptance of natural limitations. Humanity will challenge everything we believe about intelligent life's purpose and potential. As the ship broke through Earth's cloud layer, billions of humans looked upward, their faces showing not fear but wonder. In that moment, Vex understood that the galaxy had forever changed, not because humanity had been discovered, but because humanity would not remain passive in their discovery. They would reshape the galaxy as they had reshaped their world, through impossible resilience, irrational hope, and the strange, powerful alchemy of their emotions. The apex beings had arrived on the galactic stage.